I pulled the alien queen by her hair out of the fire. Now she says she can still feel it inside. The plasma reactor whined at a frequency that made Captain Elias Vega's teeth ache. The Joint Human Meridian Research Facility had taken heavy fire from separatist forces, and now the main power core was destabilizing rapidly. "Evacuate immediately," Elias shouted into his comm, gesturing wildly at the remaining techs. The air shimmered with heat as emergency lights painted everything in pulsing crimson. "Move, people! We've got minutes at best." The facility trembled. Through the smoke, Elias spotted a figure in elaborate armor collapsed near the reactor housing. Without thinking, he sprinted toward the fallen form, ignoring the warning screams of his squad. The reactor's casing fractured. A blinding flash of blue-white energy erupted as Elias reached the armored figure. He grabbed the only thing he could, a cascade of silver, almost metallic hair spilling from beneath the helmet, and pulled with all his strength. The blast wave caught them both, hurling them through a partition wall as superheated plasma engulfed the chamber behind them. Elias felt his skin blister even through his combat suit before darkness claimed him. He awoke in the Coalition medical bay 3 days later, his body wrapped in regenerative bandages. Commander Thorne stood at his bedside, expression unreadable. "You've caused quite the diplomatic situation, Captain," Thorne said. Elias tried to speak, but his throat felt scorched. "The person in the reactor room, not just any person. You pulled Sovereign Neuralith of the Meridian Empire through that fire, by her hair no less." Thorne almost smiled. "Their ambassador isn't sure whether to recommend you for their highest honor, or demand your court-martial for touching their leader." Elias closed his eyes. The Meridians had been Earth's reluctant allies for barely a year after centuries of cold hostility. Their sovereign was rarely seen outside their territory, let alone in a frontier research facility. "Is she alive?" he managed. "Very much so, thanks to you. Meridians are resilient, but that blast would have killed anyone." In her private medical chamber aboard the Meridian flagship, Sovereign Neuralith pressed a hand to her chest where an unfamiliar warmth pulsed. The royal physicians had examined her for 3 days, finding nothing physically wrong despite her insistence that something had changed inside her. "Sovereign, you must rest," her chief advisor, Kalari, urged. "The council demands answers about your presence at the facility." Neuralith ignored him, focusing instead on the strange echo she felt, like a second heartbeat, not her own, resonating within her. Since the moment the human had touched her, dragged her from certain death, she had felt his life force somehow entangled with hers. "The human who saved me," she said. "I must see him. Sovereign, it would be unprecedented. I can feel him, Kalari." Her silver eyes flashed. "Something happened in that fire. Something your instruments cannot detect." A week later, Elias sat upright in his bed when the medical bay doors slid open. The room fell silent as Sovereign Neuralith entered, her silver hair now bound in elaborate braids, her tall form draped in iridescent ceremonial attire that seemed to shift colors with each movement. She approached his bed, dismissing her guards with a gesture. "Captain Vega," she said, her voice melodic despite its formal tone. "I believe we are connected now in ways neither of our species has experienced before. Since you pulled me from that fire, I have felt your essence within me, like an echo I cannot silence." Elias stared, transfixed. "I've been dreaming of a silver light. Every night since the explosion." Neuralith's expression softened. "The scientists call it bioresonance. I call it something else entirely." "What do you call it?" He asked. "The beginning," she answered simply. "Bioresonance is extremely rare," Dr. Saria Lynn explained, adjusting holographic displays surrounding Elias and Neuralith. The Coalition's leading xenobiologist had been studying them for 2 weeks. "We've documented only 3 cases in 70 years of interspecies contact." Elias watched the display showing matching pulse patterns between them. Even seated 10 feet apart, their vital signs synchronized whenever they made eye contact. "Is it dangerous?" he asked, catching Neuralith's gaze. The warmth in his chest intensified immediately. "Not physically," Dr. Lynn said, "but psychologically. It's complicated. The resonance creates a quantum entanglement at the cellular level. You're experiencing each other's emotional states, possibly even thoughts or memories with prolonged contact." Neuralith rose gracefully. "Thank you, Doctor. The captain and I require private discussion." When they were alone in the observation room, Neuralith's formal demeanor softened. "My council demands I return to the Meridian homeworld," she said. They believe this connection compromises me. Does it? Elias asked. She approached him, silver eyes reflecting the starlight from the viewport. My people value emotional discipline above all. Attachments are discouraged, particularly for sovereigns. Yet here you are. Yet here I am. Her lips curved slightly. Yesterday I felt your frustration during physical therapy. Last night I dreamt of a place with blue waters and tall trees. A lake from your childhood, perhaps? Elias stared. Lake Tahoe, my family had a cabin there. See? The resonance grows stronger. She hesitated, then placed her hand near his without touching. I should find this intrusion disturbing, but you don't. No, she admitted. I find it fascinating. Over the following weeks, Niralith defied convention by remaining on the station. She claimed diplomatic necessity, though her counsel grew increasingly suspicious. Elias found himself assigned as her security liaison, a transparent excuse for them to study the resonance phenomenon. During a diplomatic reception, Elias stood at attention while representatives from 12 worlds mingled. Niralith appeared in traditional Meridian formal attire, her silver hair adorned with crystalline ornaments that caught the light with every movement. Your sovereign looks uncomfortable, Commander Thorne muttered beside Elias. The Andromean ambassador's cologne is giving her a headache. Elias replied automatically, then froze when he realized what he'd said. Thorne raised an eyebrow. And you know this how? Elias had no answer that wouldn't sound impossible. Later that evening, Niralith found him on the observation deck. You felt my discomfort, she said. Not a question. Yes, it's getting stronger. She moved beside him, watching the nebula swirling outside. On my world, this connection would be considered dangerous. Meridians once had these bonds naturally, thousands of years ago. Our histories call it soul binding. It was bred out of us when the unified mind philosophy took hold. Why eliminate something so profound? Individual connections threatened collective harmony. She turned to him closer than propriety would allow. What happens when the sovereign feels more connected to an alien than to her own people? Elias felt her conflict through their bond. Duty warring with curiosity, tradition against possibility. What happens, he said softly, when a human soldier cares more about an alien sovereign's happiness than his next promotion? Their hands touched, sending a cascade of warmth through the resonance. For a brief moment, Elias saw through her eyes. The world slightly bluer, sharper at the edges, and filled with subtle energy patterns humans couldn't perceive. Niralith gasped. I felt your world too, so vibrant and chaotic. Her fingers intertwined with his. This connection, it was not in my plans. I don't think fate consults our plans, Elias replied. For the first time since he'd known her, Sovereign Niralith smiled fully, and Elias felt the echo of her joy resonate through his entire being. This has gone far enough, Sovereign. High Counselor Vexarin's hologram towered in the communication chamber. Your continued association with the human compromises your judgment and our position in the coalition. Niralith stood unflinching before the projection of her counsel. The resonance provides unprecedented insights into human thought patterns. Strategic advantages we cannot ignore. Then allow our scientists to study it properly on the homeworld, Vexarin countered. Bring the human if you must, but under controlled conditions. Captain Vega is not a specimen to be examined, Niralith said coldly. He saved my life at great personal cost. After the transmission ended, Kalari approached cautiously. Sovereign, the council is not entirely wrong. Your behavior has changed. Niralith turned to the viewport. Is change always deterioration, Kalari? For centuries we've held ourselves apart, believing our evolved attachment made us superior. Yet in weeks, this connection has revealed more about humans than decades of formal diplomacy. Your feelings for this human go beyond diplomatic interest, Kalari observed. Niralith didn't deny it. The resonance had grown from fleeting emotional echoes to something deeper. Last night she had awakened from a dream of Earth's oceans, a place she'd never visited, with the salt spray on her lips and the sound of waves in her ears. Elias's memories had become hers. In the tactical center, Elias demonstrated the practical applications of their connection to skeptical military officers. Sovereign Niralith can now interpret Meridian strategic communications with 98% accuracy, he explained. My understanding of their culture has similarly improved. Impressive, Commander Thorne acknowledged. But that doesn't explain your request for joint deployment in the border sectors. The resonance functions across considerable distances, Elias said. But its tactical advantages are strongest when we're in proximity. The truth was more complex. Physical separation had become increasingly uncomfortable, a persistent ache that neither could fully articulate. The scientists called it resonance withdrawal, a phenomenon they were eager to study further. That evening, Elias found Niralith in the arboretum, surrounded by earth plants that had been installed as a diplomatic gesture. Your superiors are as resistant as my council, she said as he approached. They're afraid of what they don't understand. He sat beside her on the stone bench. To be fair, I don't fully understand it either. Through their connection, he felt her weariness and something deeper, longing carefully controlled. In 10 cycles, I am to undergo the sovereign's discipline, she said quietly, a ritual that would purge all emotional attachments, enhancing my connection to the collective consciousness of our people. It is our tradition, and now I question whether detachment is truly wisdom. She turned to him, silver eyes luminous in the artificial twilight. Your people embrace connection, emotion, individuality. We were taught these were primitive traits to overcome. Are they? I'm no longer certain. Her hand found his, the resonance flaring between them. When I touch you, I feel more, not less. My thoughts are clearer, not clouded. The moment stretched between them, heavy with unspoken possibilities. Elias felt her internal conflict, duty versus desire, tradition against the unprecedented pull between them. He leaned closer, hesitant. Niralith, she closed the distance, pressing her lips to his. The resonance exploded into something entirely new, a swirling vortex of sensation and emotion that blurred the boundaries between them. Memories cascaded through the connection. Her childhood on a world with 2 moons, his first space flight, her coronation ceremony, his mother's funeral. Joy and pain, triumph and loss, all shared in an instant of perfect understanding. When they finally separated, breathing heavily, the resonance hummed with new intensity. That was, Elias began. Forbidden, she finished, but made no move to increase the distance between them, and inevitable. Unknown to them, surveillance drones captured their encounter. Within hours, both the Meridian Council and Coalition Command received the footage. By morning, new orders had been issued. The experimental phase of their research was officially terminated. Reassignment effective immediately, Commander Thorne said, sliding the order across the desk. Outpost Helios. Departure at 0600. Elias stared at the document. Helios was as far from the Meridian territories as possible while still remaining in Coalition space, a research station orbiting a volatile neutron star. This is punishment, he said flatly. Thorne's expression remained neutral. This is damage control. Your relationship with Sovereign Niralith has become a diplomatic liability. The bioresonance research will continue under controlled conditions with different subjects. Thorne leaned forward. Elias, be reasonable. You're a decorated officer. She's the ruler of an empire we barely understand. This connection between you threatens the stability of a very fragile alliance. Elias felt a sharp pulse of distress through the resonance, not his own. Somewhere on the station, Niralith had received similar news. Has she been informed? He asked. Her delegation departs for the Meridian homeworld within the hour. Thorne's voice softened slightly. You have 30 minutes to say goodbye. That's the best I could negotiate. Niralith waited in the diplomatic reception area, her usual entourage conspicuously absent. The silver of her hair seemed dulled, her posture rigid with contained emotion. They're sending me to Helios, Elias said without preamble, and I am summoned home for the Sovereign's discipline, ahead of schedule. Her voice was hollow. My council believes our connection has compromised me beyond acceptable parameters. The distance between them felt immense despite being only a few steps apart. Through the resonance, Elias sensed her struggling against her cultural conditioning, every instinct to maintain composure fighting against the desire to close the distance between them. How far is Helios from your homeworld? She asked. 26 light years, well beyond the range they've documented for bioresonance effects. Niralith closed her eyes briefly. They intend to sever our connection. Will it work? I don't know. Her silver eyes met his. No meridian has allowed a connection like ours in 15 generations. We are unprecedented. The countdown display on the wall showed 20 minutes remaining before her shuttle departed. 20 minutes to say goodbye to someone who had become as essential as breathing. This isn't right, Elias said. There's something more happening here than just biology or physics. Niralith moved closer, propriety forgotten. The discipline will attempt to erase you from my consciousness. If it succeeds, I'll still remember for both of us, he promised. She touched his face, the resonance flaring between them. In that moment, deliberately, she opened her mind completely. No barriers, no meridian restraint. The full force of her emotions flooded through their connection. Longing, frustration, fear, and something deeper that transcended human or meridian vocabulary. Elias responded in kind, letting her feel everything he couldn't articulate in words. When their time ended, they parted without physical contact, meridian guards ensuring protocol was maintained. But through the resonance, they remained connected until her shuttle broke orbit. The pain began 3 days into Elias's journey to Helios. A hollow ache that intensified with each light year of separation. By the time he arrived at the outpost, he was experiencing severe migraines, insomnia, and phantom sensations of cold despite the regulated temperature. The medical officer diagnosed resonance withdrawal, but had no effective treatment. It should diminish with time, she offered without conviction, but it didn't diminish. For weeks, Elias functioned on minimal sleep, haunted by fragmented dreams of crystal spires and silver moons he'd never seen, except through Niralith's memories. Then, suddenly, nothing. The constant background hum of their connection went silent. Elias collapsed during a routine inspection, the abrupt severance more painful than the withdrawal had been. She had undergone the discipline. The connection was broken. 3 months into his assignment, alarms blared throughout Helios Station. A Meridian diplomatic vessel had arrived unannounced, requesting emergency docking. Elias stood at attention in the docking bay as the airlock cycled open, expecting a formal delegation. Instead, Niralith emerged alone, thinner than he remembered, her silver hair cut short in the style of Meridian mourning. Before anyone could react, she crossed the distance between them. There was an assassination attempt, she said, her voice ragged. Coalition intelligence believes it was orchestrated by those who fear our alliance. Are you all right? He asked, fighting the urge to reach for her. The discipline failed, she said simply. They tried 3 times to break our connection. Each attempt caused severe neural trauma, but the resonance remained. Her silver eyes held his. When the assassin struck, I felt your warning through the bond despite the distance. It saved my life. The station commander stepped forward. Sovereign, we weren't notified of your arrival. Protocols require I am not here as sovereign, Niralith interrupted. The Regent Council governs in my absence. I am here as the only Meridian who has ever survived the discipline's failure. She turned back to Elias, and as someone who now understands that some connections transcend our understanding of what's possible. For the first time in months, Elias felt the resonance stir between them, weaker than before but undeniably present. Whatever they had begun in that moment of fire could not be severed by distance or ritual or politics. It could only be embraced. 1 year later, the observation platform of New Geneva Station hummed with diplomatic activity. Representatives from 27 worlds gathered to witness the unprecedented, a formal alliance treaty between humans and Meridians that went beyond the fragile non-aggression pacts of the past. At the center of it all stood Captain Elias, Vega, now designated Coalition Ambassador to the Meridian Empire, and Sovereign Niralith, her silver hair regrown and adorned with both Meridian crystals and earth flowers. The terms are favorable, Kalari murmured, reviewing the final document. More than we expected. Necessity often achieves what goodwill cannot, Niralith replied. Through the resonance, now a comfortable constant between them, she felt Elias's amusement at her diplomatic understatement. What began as bioresonance had evolved into something the scientists still struggled to classify. The connection between them had stabilized, allowing them to function independently while maintaining an awareness that transcended normal communication. More significantly, it had proven replicable, in limited fashion, between carefully matched human and Meridian pairs. Commander Thorne approached, now wearing Admiral's insignia. The Andromean delegation is requesting assurances about technological exchanges. Tell them, Elias suggested through their private channel, about the navigation innovations. Niralith nodded slightly. Inform the Andromeans that access to meridian fold space calculations will be included in the secondary protocols, with appropriate safeguards. After the Admiral departed, Elias moved closer to her, maintaining the proper diplomatic distance while their resonance bridged the gap between them. Your council still has reservations, he observed. As does your government, she countered. But the practical benefits have silenced most critics. The treaty they had crafted represented more than political alliance. It established the framework for cultural exchange, scientific collaboration, and the careful exploration of the phenomenon now officially termed cross-species resonance. What neither government officially acknowledged was the personal relationship that had developed alongside the diplomatic one. In private quarters away from formal functions, they had created their own traditions that honored both cultures while establishing something entirely new. The night before the signing ceremony, they stood together on the private balcony of their diplomatic suite, watching the spiral galaxy that contained both their homeworlds. Do you regret it? Elias asked. Everything that's happened since I pulled you from that fire? Niralith considered, her silver eyes reflecting starlight. Meridians are taught that attachment is weakness, that true strength comes from standing apart, observing without participating. She turned to him. I believed this for most of my life, and now I understand that there is wisdom in connection. Her hand found his, the resonance between them glowing warmly. Through you, I have experienced life beyond duty and tradition. Through me you have gained perspective beyond human limitations. A fair exchange, he said with a smile. More than fair. She moved closer, the formal boundaries between sovereign and ambassador dissolving in private. My ancestors would be horrified that I've allowed an alien presence in my consciousness, that I've chosen connection over isolation. Mine would be equally shocked that I fell in love with an alien queen. Elias replied, drawing her into his arms. Sovereign, she corrected automatically. Not queen. Semantics. He traced the curve of her face. What matters is that we've created something neither of our species imagined possible. The resonance hummed between them, no longer simply echoing emotions, but creating a shared space where neither was fully separate from the other. Not a loss of identity, but an expansion of it. Two perspectives blending while remaining distinct. The treaty would be signed tomorrow, officially beginning a new era of human meridian relations. Scientist pairs would study the resonance phenomenon for generations. Diplomats would debate the implications for centuries. But here, in this moment, was the truth behind it all. That sometimes the most profound connections begin in fire, with one hand reaching blindly to save another. They'll write about us someday, Elias said softly. The human who pulled an alien sovereign from a fire by her hair. And the sovereign who defied an empire's traditions for something she couldn't explain. Niralith added. What would you call our story? He asked. Niralith smiled, a gesture she had once considered undignified but now embraced. I would call it inevitable, she said, closing the remaining distance between them as the stars continued their ancient dance around them. In the vastness of space, their two worlds, once separated by suspicion and difference, now orbited a new center of gravity. Not human, not meridian, something entirely, wonderfully unprecedented, something that began with fire, continued through resonance, and ended with the most powerful force in any galaxy. Connection.